Hey, everybody, this is Eric Mueller, the host of The Eric Mueller Show. You're tuned into the podcast that explores what makes any successful person's inner clock tick by unlocking the most impactful tools within their success portfolio. I'm joined today by Philip Smith, an expert in lead generation marketing and the founder of All-in-One Marketing. Now, in 2018, Phil partnered with Kevin Harrington. I don't know if that name sounds familiar, but Kevin was one of the original sharks on Shark Tank, and he's actually the inventor of the infomercial, as he says often on the show. So Phil partnered with Kevin back in 2018 to help him take his personal brand to the next level. Really powerful move to brand himself and to get to that next level in terms of what makes up Philip Smith, where did he want to go with his entrepreneurship. Phil has also made the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing private companies 5 times, even having achieved this feat as a solopreneur without a single employee. Let's head on over to the interview. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Man, thanks for coming on here, Phil. And really, before we dive deep into this entrepreneurial story of yours, this connection you had with Kevin, and your expertise on lead gen marketing and scaling businesses, we want to know what makes up your success portfolio. So if you're listening to the show for the first time, a really quick, simplistic way to view this is to think of an investment portfolio with finances. So that compilation of investments that really lays that foundation for financial goals. Well, here on the Eric Mueller Show, I want to discover how successful people like Phil invest in themselves and build that foundation for their success. So Phil, start us off. What are maybe some skills, traits, habits, mindsets that make up your success portfolio?
It's funny because I started my first business in 1998. I had the ability to get a job at the time. I had just finished my internship, and I had also the ability to start a business. So at the time, I was kind of torn on what to do. And I asked a guy I knew that was very successful in the business world. And obviously he said, go start your own business. You're young. If you make mistakes, it doesn't work, no big deal. You can always get a job. So that was 1998. And I started that. And I have to tell you, my mindset completely has changed over 25 years, as you can imagine, just like everything else in life. And at that time, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally started a web hosting company and I just did it. I just said, screw it, I'm going to do it. I didn't even know how to host a website. I had to go figure it out after I got my first customer. So one of the things that I learned at a young age was just to move forward. And I see a lot of people over the years that overthink things. They want everything to be perfect before they even move forward, either whether starting a business or just whatever they're doing. And me, I've always been a complete opposite. I just do it and I know I'm going to make mistakes, and I'll just make those mistakes and keep moving forward. So that's one of the most important things I learned at a young age, to just keep, just do it, just like Nike says. And, that business we eventually sold in 2005. And the biggest change I made at that point in time was I said, I don't ever want another employee, and I just want to work from home. So that was 2006 is when I said that, and I started working from home.
Yeah, I think that's such an important mindset to have, to just jump in and do it. Because I think the analysis paralysis is something I know I'm personally affected by at times too, where you think, gosh, you got to have it all figured out before you jump in. But then with things like, starting a company, like someone might get there before you is something that could happen. Or you might lose the motivation or drive to even do it after you've flushed it all out. Or even worst case scenario, Phil, is that maybe you get everything perfect and you launch it, and there's not even a market for it. There's nobody even wants what you've created. Even if it's cool, it's like there's not a market fit. Mm-hmm. So further building on, the success portfolio and the things that lead you to be successful, an important piece too is to just define success. So you've mentioned that it's changed drastically over the 25 years that you've been in business. But what would you say your definition of success is right now? And maybe what was it at the beginning, or how did it kind of mold and change over time, if it did at all?
Yeah, when I first started, I just want to make enough money to live, right? This is going back, and we struggled for years in that first company. But as time went on, in my 20s, it was all about having cars and having all this money and going out and just doing, things you do in your 20s, I guess, and almost like the showing off phase for me anyway. When I got into my 30s, I kind of got myself out of debt. I lived in debt in my 20s, big time. Because I kept pushing myself. I'm like, literally what I said to myself was, if I put myself more in debt, then I'll just force myself to make more money. That's no joke. Exactly what I said to myself. In my 30s, I reversed it and I started getting out of debt and then living more of a normal life. And in my 40s, I actually got into the whole saving and retirement mode. But listen, in the business world, yes, you need the mindset of do not quit 100%. Like I never went into a business thinking that I'm going to fail, right? I went into a business saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful in this business. And I am one of those people that cannot do the same thing for a long period of time. So I need to change. I need to do something different. So I'm always thinking also 10 steps ahead. You have to 100%. If you're in your business, you have to worry more about what could go wrong than what's going right. And I'm definitely one of those people that if things are going right, I get too comfortable. So when things are going right, I literally tell myself, things are going right now, what's going to go wrong, right? In the next month or two or 3 or 4. So I'm always thinking 6, 12 months down the road. Just a quick example. In 2017, I knew my lead gen business would eventually start to have issues in the business loan space, whether lead costs was keep going up or whatever. I just had a feeling. It actually didn't really have problems till COVID. So I did have a few years, but I said to myself, I need another way to monetize my leads, meaning I already have these leads that come to me that looking for business loans. What else can I do with these leads to make more money with them? So that's when I got into the course business and started doing like educational stuff off my current lead flow. So because I was thinking down the road, like something could go wrong. So that business took off going into 2018, 19, 20. So when I started having issues on the lead side, then the education business is already, doing millions a year in revenue. So I was like, all right, no big deal. So I just transitioned at that point in time during COVID. So just another thing, just always think 10 steps down the road, always know what could go wrong and have a plan for it. Because like even in the investment world, I worked actually at an investment fund for 2 years because I sold one of my companies to them. And I said to myself, who do you want to hang out with? I want to hang out with all the guys with money, right? So I hung out with them for 2 years. The main guy was Jim Estel. He was one of the first investors in BlackBerry. He made almost $500 million off that one investment alone. He was from the Toronto area where BlackBerry started. And he was also on a board as well. Took his own business from 0 to 2 billion in revenue. He wrote a book, From 0 to 2 billion. Great guy to be around, really, really nice. And they had 17 companies in a fund. I started working with them. But being a part of that whole world of the investment world, the one thing that I learned that they look for is they want to know that what could go wrong in your business, right? So they'll ask you some wild questions just to get it, just to see what your answer is. Like, what happens if a bomb dropped on your office tomorrow? What would you do? You know what I mean? Like just stuff like that. That's like, what do you mean? That's never going to, hopefully never going to happen. But you get what I'm saying. So, there's a lot of different things that we all learn throughout the years through this journey of entrepreneurship, and some things I never even thought of doing when I was younger that I wish I thought of. But you just kind of just learn as you go.
Yeah. And an important piece that I at least took away from that right there, where you're talking about failure and not thinking you're going to fail, but you are also preparing for something that could go wrong. So I think it's like, at least that was an important distinction to make in my mind, that you're not thinking, oh, things are going to go wrong, so I'm going to fail. You're just thinking, what could go wrong? Let's be prepared to tackle that. So if it does happen, we can still remain successful. We can still remain sustainable as a company. And so that's, I think, really important for anybody out there that's started a business or has like, a solo, preneur type thing where they're making money, doing something that everything has factors that could go wrong. And I think an example that I thought of too, Phil, is that with COVID, like you just shared that example, but like so many things happened. If someone had a brick and mortar store during COVID and had zero online presence, they may have went under. They may not exist anymore. And that was potentially, they never thought of that before it happened. And there's their, possible downfall where they didn't have the foresight, like you mentioned, is so important to have. And so Phil, let's get to, so you mentioned that you sold your first company that you started in 1998 and 2005. Let's flash forward 13 years to that 2018 where you met Kevin Harrington and you basically enlisted him to help you with your personal branding. What's the story behind that? How did you meet a guy like that? And what were the steps that led you to think like this guy can maybe help me? Like, started the infomercial, marketing guru. he can probably help me with my personal brand. I'd love to hear that story.
It's funny because when Shark Tank started, Kevin was the only guy that I even knew existed, out of all the sharks at the time. But what happened was in 2017, I started getting more into the educational space, or the quote unquote guru space, just doing courses at the time. And the reason why I started that business was, again, I had all these leads. I had literally, hundreds of thousands of leads of businesses. And I said, what else can I do with these leads? So that's why I said, let me just give them a business. So I literally created a course to help people start a business in the business loan space that I was already in. So that's how it all started. But I struggled with it because I knew that I would have to put myself out there. I was, watching all these other guys, out there doing that type of marketing and selling courses. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to have to put myself out there and show people what I make and what I have and whatever, which I'm really just not that person at all. And I still hate it to this day, actually. But I also knew at the same time, once I made a decision to start doing it, and one thing I'll throw out there about just doing stuff and not worrying, I actually never built the course. I actually just made the sales video, and I said, if someone actually pays for this, then I'll go build the course. So
man,
it's just about moving forward and just doing stuff, because sales solves all problems. Right. So if I can just sell this, then I'll go make it. I'm not going to go make it and hopefully someone buys it. So that's just the way I've always been. So going to the end of 2017, I was working with this guy, James. He was helping me actually start this course business. And I said, because he actually just sold his own company. So James sold his own company and looked at me and said, he's like, I got nothing to do. I'm like, well, if you want to help me do this business, it's cool. Like, this is what I'm starting to do. And he's like, I always see you just relax and just hanging out every day, especially when we go out to lunch. He's a friend of mine. So he's like, I just want to do what you do because I want to live the daily life that you live. So basically got into the end of the year and I said, I got to start building my brand. Well, how else do you build your brand faster than partnering with someone like a shark, right? So I wanted someone that's more like a celebrity, not just someone with money. So I spammed all the sharks. I emailed all of them as much as I could, and basically talked to 3 different groups: Barbara Corcoran, Damon John, and Kevin Harrington. Barbara's more into real estate, so that didn't make sense. Damon's team was a little hard to kind of get through. So Kevin's son actually lives 20 minutes away from me. So that it was a big benefit. But what happened was his other son called me, which I didn't know was his son at the time, and said, hey, when I, contacted him, Kevin is actually doing interviews at the end of January. So January of 2018 in Tampa. Do you want to come down? It'll be $9,000. I'm like, done. Let's go. Because I just need to put myself in the same room as the guy. So I knew just from my investment days, I'm like, all right, I have 30 seconds with this guy. I just need to get him 30 seconds of his time, give him my elevator pitch just to get his interest. I don't need to make a decision, just the interest. So we get to his studio in Tampa, and there's basically like a little conference room. And I knew that Kevin was going to be the first person out of that room. So I positioned myself at the door, which was actually the furthest away from all the people speaking in the room. So doing like a brainstorming session, if you will. So what happened was they went through the whole thing. About 45 minutes later, Kevin's the first one out, and I just went right behind him and said, hey, Kevin, Phil Smith, this is my business. This is what I do. I'm just looking to utilize your brand. I'm not looking for actually any money from you whatsoever. I just want to partner up and obviously grow this business. So I just, very simple. He said, hey, man, I'm interested in talking. Let me introduce you to so-and-so, and kind of started the process from there. Dealing with his attorneys is like the worst part of the entire thing. But it took, a while, because they don't just, work with anybody. So from that was the end of January, started the process, and literally didn't do a deal until September, and finally got it all done. And I've been working with them ever since now. So it's been, long time.
Yeah, that's a great story, man. And it really, I appreciate the gusto you had to just go for it. And, you had an opportunity, had someone reach out to you. Hey, here's where he's going to be. You're like, let's just do this. And followed your advice to just do it. You go there, you strategically think about where to even sit in the room, and just, you make that introduction to him as he's walking. I think that's something I recall doing that in pharmacy school at a convention with who's now a good friend that ran a company down in Oklahoma. And so, I remember it's just like, don't ever feel like you can't just say hi and introduce yourself and, put your hand out to shake their hand. And it's like, they're people too, as celebrities, people that run companies. It's like, there's still people just like, you and I, the listener out there, like we are, you're able to interact with anybody. You just have to put yourself in that position. So Phil shared, that's a great story of how to do that. And Phil, would you share maybe like some of the challenges you faced when building the personal brand? Like how did you overcome those? Or, maybe that's where having a mentor like Kevin really helped big time with being able to have, developing that foresight to foresee challenges. Or what was really the biggest challenge you faced with the personal brand growth?
It's actually myself, because I don't really enjoy it. So I have to push myself to do it. So like 2000, last year, I was interviewed over 40 times, a bunch of times on TV. So going to the studio in person, first time I ever did was in Connecticut, and it was live, and I didn't know it was live until I got there, and I was like, started freaking out. So the best thing I do is I just do shots of tequila to make myself calm down. But that always works for me.
Always
Even
works.
when I speak on stage, like I do my own events all the time, like 5 to 10 a year. But what happened was, and I'm fine at my own events, but when I'm in other rooms, other people's rooms, even if it's just 20, 30, 40 people, I got to stand up, I start to like go crazy inside. So, I'm sure it'll fine on the outside, look normal, but on the inside, it's like a tornado going on. I still can't get used to it. It is what it is. But that's my biggest battle. My biggest battle is me personally. And it's also, I still feel uncomfortable, like, being around all these guys, like, because like even Damon John, right? So I joined his mastermind group last year. So we were part of 4 events now, so 3 per year. So 1 this year so far. And my goal was obviously to try to do a deal with Damon, right? Why not? So put myself in the same room as him. It started in March, the first event. He actually offered, hey, buy, it came out to $3,000 to buy his book, which was actually a kid's book. I'm seeing if I have one right here. It's a kid's literacy book, financial literacy. So he's like, hey, buy, I think 200 of my books and I'll come to your office. I'll do lunch with you, whatever. So I was like, for $3,000 to have lunch with Damon, done. Right. So I did that. We did the 3 events. And then we met him in Miami. We actually never met him until November, actually. So, which is totally fine. I didn't mind taking the time because I was kind of building a relationship over the years and his team and whatever, right? You got to get him with the team, right? You can't, it's not just about Damon, because even Kevin, I don't really speak to Kevin a lot. I speak to his son all the time. You know what I mean? So, so Damon's in the same position where we're just getting, know him. I can, text him on his birthday, whatever, but not going to bother him. You know what I mean? So now we had lunch with him in Miami. It was great. That kind of catapulted everything. Just that 2 hours one-on-one time went from like maybe doing a deal to him saying 120% we're doing a deal. Right. So that's why it's worth to put yourself in the right room with the right people, get in front of them, whatever, take the shot. Even if something doesn't happen today, it's totally fine. Because don't forget, I did talk to Damon's team all the way back in 2018. You know what I mean? And nothing happened. So fast forward 6 years, and I'm like, oh, cool, I finally have a shot. You know what I mean? So, we've been doing calls with them, his team, in the last couple of weeks, and, we're getting close to doing something now. So that would be cool too. I still feel so weird at like doing this stuff. Like, I know I'm really good at what I do, and I'm not worried about it. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. But it's just weird for me personally to be like, wow, like working with Kevin Harrington, now potentially Damon John. And I've had a lot of other opportunities. Like if you know who like a Ty Lopez is, like I met him, I have his cell phone number. I never texted him once. Billy Jean is marketing, him. I have his cell phone number. I never text him once. You know what I mean? Like I have, all these guys I meet, and like I'm definitely on certain levels of some of these guys, but I'm just different because I don't have huge teams, right? Some of them have 50 employees, 100 employees, 150 employees. I'm just me. You know what I mean? And I just do what I do, and I'm happy with it, and that's that. But it's my biggest challenge has been me personally going out there and just doing what it takes to build a brand. I'm kind of going through the motions. It is what it is. I've done a decent job for what I do, but that's my biggest battle.
Yeah, you're kind of lone wolfing it out there in a way, right? Just, solopreneur in it. And yeah, I mean, I think that we can often become our own, biggest hurdle or our own worst enemy, so to speak, when you have to, I liked how you shared that you had to push through, you had to force yourself to do it. And for me, that reminds me of a previous guest. We were talking about discipline, and it's like discipline being the quality you have to do the things you don't want to do, but you need to do them. And, you develop that within yourself, and that certainly could push you to next levels. And Yeah, I think, being able to connect with these people, I'm sure in some ways is probably somewhat surreal at times because you're like, hey, I'm sure you think like, well, I'm just Phil, just doing my own thing, just building companies, doing what I do best. And it's, you're putting yourself in the position though. So I was going to ask like, what would be some great advice you'd want to give to someone that wants to enhance their own personal brand? Like maybe they're considering, collab with a high profile individual, like you did with Kevin from Shark Tank. But maybe you kind of already answered it, like putting yourself in the position. Maybe we could talk about how to do that. Like if someone right now is listening and they're like, I want to work with, Robert from Shark Tank. Let's just pick a different one, or Mark Cuban. They're starting from scratch. Like what would be, just a couple steps that they could take maybe to start that process, to even have that shot, like you've had the shots in the past.
It's really what I learned back in 2018 when I first did the first interview with Kevin, was that I started learning that there's a pay to play model. Then I started learning that someone like a Mark Cuban, as an example, unless he has the ability to if he has a mastermind or he has something where you can just pay to be there and be in front of him, sure, do it. But if he doesn't really have that, one of the ways that you can do it is go through his charity. And then the charity you pay, and then they have him meet with you for lunch. A lot of these guys just meet with, or whoever it is, women, men, whoever you're going after. A lot of these people have some sort of opportunity where you can do lunch with them for a fee. A lot of them have that, which I thought when the first time I saw it with Damon was years ago, and I thought it was like some sort of scam. I was like, is this really true?
Yeah, it's like not going to be him or something. Like,
it was like it's like $2 or $3 grand to have lunch with him, and I was like, no way. Like, that's cool. I'll do that. You know what I mean? But so I never did it through this third party company that was doing that I just talked about. But at the end of the day, is usually a way to do it. Just depends on how much you want to spend. You know what I mean? Like there's always people out there that if you're willing to spend the money, they'll talk to you or meet with you, whoever it is, right? That just exists a lot, but depends on who you're going after, right? So I just got lucky for myself because when Damon John started his mastermind last year, I got an email from the guys who were running it because I was part of another mastermind that they were part of, that they ran. And I just got an email saying, we're doing Rise Nation, with Damon John. And so I called Roland, one of the guys who runs it. And I said, is this real? Is this like, he's really going to be there? Like, is he looking to work with people, whatever? It's like, yeah, that's why we're doing it. So Damon himself actually said that. He goes, it's all about putting yourself in the right room with the right people. He goes, I need people too. You know what I mean? He goes, I have a team, sure, but I want to work with the smartest people around in each, one of your industries or whatever you're doing. So he's like, the reason why we're doing this, because we want to say, hey, if you're willing to spend, now this is 50 grand, right? 50. So if you're willing to spend 50 grand a year to be in this room with us, we know that you're doing something right. Right. And we want to talk to you. So, and for me, it's not just about Damon and his team, but it's about the other guys running it and everyone else in that room too. They're just as valuable, right? As we're like working with some other people too that are great, made some great contacts. So it's just about putting yourself in a room with certain caliber people, and listen, I wasn't always able to afford that. You know what I mean? So people use that as an excuse. Oh, well, it's easy because you can afford it. I used to only go to events that were free because I didn't want to spend the $500 to get in. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's how I started. I said I only went to local events that were free when I first started doing this back in 2014 when I got into lead generation. That's all I ever did. And then I realized, well, that the $200 to $500, you know what? It actually is worth it. And then some events are more money. The most expensive event I ever did was Money 2020, which was $6,000. But I ended up meeting a company that ended up becoming a lead buyer that paid me over 400 grand. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's hard to go spend that initial amount because you're like praying something happens, but you got to put yourself out there. Like, you just got to be smart with whatever budget you have and the events you go to. But you just got to put yourself out there and get yourself in that room.
Yeah. And it's like that return on investment. You're always going to have some level of risk to that, so it's like you're putting yourself out there. I mean, you're putting yourself out there monetarily and your time, and like, so you are taking a risk, but it's like those are, taking those risks is how you can sometimes get those rewards that matter the most. And the opportunities, like you mentioned, that 400,000, versus $6,000 investment. Like, obviously a no-brainer. If you ask someone, would you invest 6,000 and later I'm going to give you 400,000? They'd be like, of course. But there's still, with the unknown aspect of not having that foresight, you're going to have a little hesitation initially for probably a lot of people. And 6,000, depending on where you're at, could be, all the money you have saved, or it could be a drop in the bucket if you're, making hundreds of thousands a month or something. So yeah, I think all of that really, certainly gets the gears turning in my mind about personal branding. And hopefully those of you listening, it really can kind of inspire you and make you feel like, they're regular people too. The people that you look up to, you can reach out, shoot them a message, get with their team. Like, there are steps you can take to contact these people and put yourself in the right rooms, like Phil said. And so, Phil, if we could switch for, the second half here of chatting, is just talking a little bit about lead generation and maybe what you do at All-in-One Marketing. Are you able to maybe first off just define lead generation for us, and then share a few examples of some successful lead generation companies you've run in the past?
Yeah. So basically, at the end of the day, lead generation is just generating leads for any business. So if you're a insurance company, right, and you need people that looking for auto insurance, well, you need to generate leads. That's why companies run TV commercials, right? The car companies, whoever it is, right? They're just running ads online or on TV, and they want phone calls, or they want you to show up at a dealership or whatever it is. We only do online. So if we run an ad on Facebook, Google, or YouTube, we'll run an ad, let's just say, for a business loan company, a mortgage company, or whoever. Someone sees that ad, they go to the website, they fill out the form. Now that person becomes a lead for that company, right? So lead generation is very generic. It's just marketing at the end of the day. What we specifically do is only performance marketing. So that means that when we generate leads, we turn around and we sell those leads. So a company doesn't pay me like an agency model where 500 a month, 1,000 a month, 2,000 a month, and then I just do all the work for them. Doesn't matter how much they make. We only sell leads. So that means if I'm generating leads, let's just say one of the biggest verticals I've ever been involved in myself is business loans. So if I generate a business loan lead, I will take that lead and sell it to a business loan lender, right? But here's the kicker. The secret sauce to this entire business model is not just generating leads and selling them once. It's about monetizing the leads as many different ways as possible. Now, I don't mean take one lead and sell it 10 times. That's not what I mean. I mean, so just say, as an example, if I generate like our newest funnel that we're building out, which is our proposal to Damon John, I'll just kind of explain what the plan is. The plan is to have Damon on the front end in the ads, obviously, promoting business services. Could be AI, right? Different marketing services around AI. Could be a consulting service. It could be get yourself on TV, like we do the TV interviews, get people on TV on like ABC, NBC, etc. So it'll be like a front end offer will be one of those services. When someone sees that ad and comes to the landing page and it says, hey, do you want to be on TV, for an example? And they start answering the questions. We'll ask additional questions. Hey, you want a business loan? If it's a TV ad, we'll ask, do you want AI services, right? We'll ask other things. So if the person says yes to 2 or 3 more other things, then now I have potentially can sell off that lead or provide them other services to other things. So now instead of monetizing a lead once, I can monetize the lead 3 or 4 times, right? And then now that lead comes in, you start to do more volume, and then the leads just get distributed to either you're selling a lead, maybe doing affiliate marketing, or you provide in-house services. If I go back to my business loan funnel, which is the same concept, someone came in as a business loan lead, and then I would sell it to credit repair. I would sell it to companies who just provide business services, maybe incorporation services. Maybe they do startup lending, right? All sorts of stuff. So now a lead can come in and I can send it to 3 separate buyers with 3 separate services, right? So that, and it's all automated, on that end of it. Because for the business loan stuff, I wasn't providing any in-house services. It was just selling leads. All of the marketing, we do in-house services. So it's a combination. So that's the idea behind it. And then from there, you just scale it, right? So the most leads I ever generated in one day consistently in business loans was 1,300, right? So just pumping out 1,300 leads a day, even if you're only making a few dollars profit per lead, it adds up, right? So it's just a volume play, number one. And then from there, you monetize it as many different ways as possible where it doesn't become too much, right? Too much monetization. And then also now you have the age leads. I've had companies, no joke, buy every single age lead that I've had. So I had one company called Everest Funding. They're at I think they're in Miami, but they're in Florida, South Florida somewhere. Once I knew that, they would start buying my age leads. Now, an age lead is a lead that's not fresh. So for me, an age lead was a lead that's at least 30 days old. But they were buying leads from years ago. They were buying going out 2, 3, 4 years. They bought every single lead for $1 each. And at the time, I had 400,000 leads that fit their filter. So over 6 months, they paid me $400,000. That was pure profit because I already made money on those leads. And that same age leads that I'm talking about is how I built my course business, because I used those leads to kick things off, right? And I made like $250,000 in the first few months because I was charging $1,000 a pop. You know what I mean? So the idea, what the great thing about the lead gen business is owning the data. If you want to own a company, own the data that they need to grow, and they will be your best client forever, right? And there's multiple companies that I helped sell, and because I was either their only or their largest lead provider, and they actually sold their company based on me and because of my leads. This happened twice, and then one company raised $50 million from Goldman Sachs because of me. So it's really cool, and that's where I really started learning about the data game in 2014.
Yeah, that's really interesting with the monetization of the data and being the one that owns the data. That's something, maybe haven't thought about it in that way as often about, if you have the ability to get the interested customers for a particular service, like not being the one that has that business, like that's a pretty interesting play to be, you go to that business then and it's like, hey, I have exactly what you need. I have your ideal customer avatars literally right here. So it's like, that's pretty slick. You get that to work. I was going to ask you, Phil, in terms of generating the leads, is there somewhat of a challenge between like the quantity versus the quality of leads? I mean, obviously, you're not going to have a 100% conversion, but if you get like 1,300 in a day, not counting ones that maybe, will sell or perform later as an age lead, but out of those 1,300, like how many of those would maybe convert for even one, fit in terms of some business that's going to pay you for that data?
So basically the way I always did it was, anytime I get into lead gen business, I always find the buyers first and I generate the leads.
Okay.
In that case, what I would do is in the business loan for that funnel, I had, so I just generated a generic business loan lead. So what I mean by that, when I put up an ad, it just said business loans. It had no filtering in the ad. It didn't say you have to generate so much revenue, you have to have a certain credit score, nothing, right? It just said business loan. So now when it came to me, I wanted to cast a wide net because I wanted all the data. So now when that lead came in, the way that the filters worked out is that if the company did over $10,000 per month in revenue, that was my most expensive lead. At the time, I was selling for like $50, right? So that's a $50 lead. Then I had a company that eventually started buying leads from me. This is the one I met at Money 2020. They were buying leads between $4,000 a month in revenue and $10,000 a month in revenue, and they were paying $20 for that lead. Then I had a credit repair company called Lexington Law that was buying them for $3. They took every single lead for $3, right, each. Then I had a company that only wanted leads over a 680 credit score, and they paid $8 a lead for that, right? And then I had an exit. So after someone filled the form, you had a thank you page. That thank you page went to an affiliate network, or a company that I was an affiliate of called Nav, and they averaged out to $2 a lead. So that means that 1,300 leads a day, I knew for a fact I was getting 3 from the credit repair company and 2 from Nav. So I was making $5. My lead cost was $8. So I was already making $5 without ever selling to the other 3 or 4 companies, and they were taking a certain percentage, right? So the company that paid the premium leads was about 10% of my leads. That means I would sell about 100 out of 1,000 a day to them. The 680 plus credit score was a little bit more percentage, probably 20%. The 4 to 10,000 in revenue is a bigger number, right? Because the less revenue, you have more of those. So that company probably took 30, 35%. You know what I mean? So you can see how all of a sudden this thing sways to being profitable and you're just cranking out, I called it an ATM machine. I mean, I would literally just sit home, refreshing my Facebook accounts and seeing how much money I was spending and then turn around and see how many leads I was generating. I had a spreadsheet with all the different buyers. So, all right, this company got 2, this company got 3, this company got whatever. And literally by like 12 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I became profitable every day. And then the rest of the day was pure profit. I just literally sit here. I started getting bored after, month after month, year after year. I was just pumping out this data. That's another reason why I got into the course business, because I was looking for something else to do, because I was so bored that I started basically selling courses for $1,000 a pop. And then that just started making money. So, listen, every business has its ups and downs. Facebook ads would get shut off. We have to rebuild. I had to start, finagling Facebook's algorithm for advertising, which was a nightmare in itself. So we had our ups and downs, but a lot more ups than downs in that business. And then, it's just a lead business in general is an amazing business. So.
Yeah. And a thought I just had where, you can sell, like, if you sell these leads to a company, is there ever any contingencies on those actually becoming customers of the company? Or when you sell the lead, are you just out and done? Are there ever companies that are like, okay, we'll buy it, but if we don't actually convert and make this person a customer, we'll claw back some of what we paid, the $3 we paid you, like we're going to take 80 cents back. Is that ever something that would be something that I would think of, just I'm in pharmacy, and, the way some retail pharmacies operate, they do get money clawed back by insurance occasionally. And there's different elements to that game. So that's probably why my mind's going there. But has that ever been a problem for you, Phil, in this industry?
No, never had that problem. Most companies pay you up front. And there's companies that came to me and said, hey, man, I didn't make any money off these leads. Typically, when that happens, it means it's probably on their end. You know what I mean? Because I had too many companies that were making money and happy and buying whatever I can give them. And then you have one, a company, out of nowhere that just says, oh, we didn't make any money. So I usually would ask them, oh, all right, so I sent you X amount of leads. What did you do with them? Well, we called them once. You know what I mean? I could literally just part, their sales strategy, which usually sucked. One thing I started learning real quick was that the companies that never bought twice never had the automation set up. The companies who had all the automation set up, and what do I mean by that? See, when I distribute them a lead, a lot of companies would say, here's send it to my email. I'm like, what do you mean send it to your email? Well, send it my email, and then I'll send it out to my guys. I'm like, so you're manually going to do this? And I'm like, all right. I'm like, just so you know, man, you're probably not going to do well with these. And I started getting to the point where I was just upfront and honest, because then they can't come back to me. I'm like, listen, this is what you need to do. And most people are just like, I'm not going to go build out all this automation to try your leads out. I'm like, it's fine. You can take them, but I'm just telling you, you're probably not going to be successful buying any leads. And then I would start asking companies, have you ever bought leads before? Because it's your first time. Do you really know how to sell a lead that's you generated this way versus you generating yourself? Then I started getting to consulting a little bit and teaching people how to do what I do in the business zone space. So I did that for a few companies. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a scalable and automated business model, right? That's why I love it so much. And you have to be very analytical to really be good at it, because you have to piece all this stuff together. And obviously a lot of it's, math driven, trying to figure all this stuff out of your ad spend and, buyers and who to gets what. Because here's the thing, you never want to be in a position where if you lose a buyer, you're screwed. Because now you're saying, I'm going to give you so many leads, I'm going to give you so many leads, I'm going to give you so many leads. And if they're doing different filters, you got to now pray and hope that they don't leave you. Right. So a lot of companies would say to me, if you're ever going to turn us down or whatever, turn us off, whatever reason, just give me a heads up, because we're really dependent on you. And that's, again, going back to, if you own the data that a company needs to grow, they will become your best friend. They all tried to buy me. I tried to get bought out so many times from these big lenders, because they're like, I need to own you. And I'm just like, it's never going to happen, man. It's never going to happen, because this business is way too lucrative and I'm not working for you. So I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. To be in that position of power, so to speak, to be able to have that leverage and be able to, if they need you, if you're providing something that is needed, they'll pay you, and if that means, Phil's costs went up, he's trying to expand or grow something else and raise his price a little bit. If that value's still there, there's probably a ceiling at some point where, it went from $3 to $3,000 per lead. Like maybe then they're like, what, all right, screw this. But there's probably a pretty wide margin where they're going to continue to pay you because you're providing something that's so valuable. So Phil, wanted to, or go ahead.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick funny story. So that one company, Nav, they were paying me $6 a lead at the time when I first started working with them. And then one day I had some issues and I stopped sending them leads. But it was just because I had issues. So what happened was this guy Joel calls me up. He goes, "Hey man, what happened to leads?" I'm like, he's like, "Do you need?" He wouldn't even let me answer the question. He's like, "You want more money for the leads? What's going on?" And I'm like, how much more do you want to spend? How much more? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean more money? So he goes, listen, I give you $8 lead. You just got to turn it back on. He never even let me finish a sentence. He was so desperate and so scared that I was going to turn the leads off for whatever reason. And I was just having some, software issues. So what happened was he literally just offered me $8. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll turn them back on. No problem. I was going to test something else out, but it's cool. So I waited a few months and I did it again. It went up to 10. Waited a few months, did it again, and went up to 12, but then that was the max I was able to get. So I went from $6 to $12. I doubled my revenue for these guys. These guys pay me over $1 million for leads over like a couple of years. It's crazy. And they're the ones that actually raise all that money from Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. It's just the power of the data. I think that was really a cool piece that I learned there was, just that monetization of data. And if you own the data that a company needs, you don't even have to be in that industry at all. But if you have that data for like a lawn mowing business, you know the businesses that need their grass cut and they don't have that contact information, they don't know how to get it. You right there, you provide value. You could never touch a lawnmower in your life and you're making money in that industry. So it really sounds like a cool model, Phil. One last question was just, what has been the most successful channel for you? Has it been social media, or do you do like any TV and radio, or is there any other, running ads on podcasts? Like, has there been something that's been more or less successful? Have you tried, a lot of different things, or what have you found to be successful?
I have tried a lot of different things, but I'm more in a volume game. So like LinkedIn really doesn't work well for us because you really need a high ticket offer for LinkedIn. Facebook is always the most volume, but it's actually probably one of the worst quality leads, but it's cheaper and more volume. So if you can figure out a way like I did to monetize the least quality leads that Facebook will provide you, you're good, right? YouTube, great quality, decent volume. Google pay-per-click, the best quality, probably the least amount of volume outside of LinkedIn. But, because they're intent leads, right? They're actually typing in what they want to search for. So you're going to pay more for those, but they are going to be the better quality leads. So Google, YouTube, way better. Facebook, it still works. I can make money with Facebook. It just is what it is at this point in time. TikTok, for the stuff that we do, is horrendous. It's really, really, really cheap, but it just doesn't work for us. We were thinking about trying it again. I heard it works really well for personal loans. I know some personal loan people that do really well with that, but it just works with products and like quick things you can buy, with the influencers and stuff. Instagram and Facebook is the same thing. And then, we've done mailings and stuff like this. It just doesn't produce a ton of volume. But for the services that we provide internally, we'll do more of that stuff because we don't really care about tremendous amount of volume. We do want higher quality leads that we can do more with. Then also it comes down to, are you doing a consumer product or a business product, right? Because I've only really done B2B, so it's all business to business. But I know people that do other stuff in a consumer world or even e-commerce world. So now you have Amazon, it's its own platform, all the retail, Best Buys and Walmarts, whatever. So there's so many different ways to generate leads. You just got to figure out what works for you. But one other thing I'll throw out there real quick that's happened. I spoke at a War Room Mastermind event, 250 people, all generating millions of dollars in revenue. I was very nervous. I have a picture of me actually doing a shot of tequila that morning. It's in Beverly Hills at April of 2019. And I basically spoke the morning of day one, which is great because I have to think about it. But I spoke about monetizing your data, whether you're a lead gen company like me or you're just a company that generates your own leads. So fast forward a few years, I meet this guy at Traffic and Conversion Summit in San Diego, great conference for this world. And he shows me his lead gen business and I tell him, hey, why aren't you monetizing these leads some other ways? And I was explaining it. A year later, I see him again, same conference in San Diego. He goes, dude, I'm doing now 7 figures a year because of you, just showing me just how to monetize leads I never even thought about. Last year in March, I was in San Diego for the first Damon John event. This guy, Brad from Austin, Texas, he was at that War Room event and he sits down at the bar next to me. He goes, man, I just got to tell you something. He goes, you know how you spoke at War Room, talked about it. He goes, I always thought about it, but I just never implemented it. I started implementing it last year. So this is 22. And he goes, I added additional 7 figures a year to my business just by monetizing my current lead flow. And he's in the merchant processing business. So he's all B2B, obviously. So it's crazy when you just hear these stories out of nowhere, you know, when you just put this information out there, you never know who's doing what. But even if you're generating leads for your own business currently, you can do other things with it. It doesn't, it's not bad. It's not scammy. It's just, you're providing more value to your customer base or your lead flow. That's the way you got to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And there could be other things that that customer is interested in that is not going to be a direct competitor to you as well. So that's another good way to think of it. But yeah, man, Phil, thanks so much for coming on here today. If someone wants to reach out and connect with you personally, is there a best way to do that? Are you on any social media? What would you suggest they do?
To be honest, my website's probably the best. Is philipfsmith.com. So that's my my more personal site. And so I have this thing called No Work Friday that we do. You know, we've been pushing that angle for years, like a little marketing thing. It's all about just building a business around a lifestyle you want to live. If you want to know that not work Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or never, it's up to you. So noworkfriday.com just gets forwarded to my website as well. So that's what I actually promote organically on social media to see if it actually works, right? Because you got to separate out the traffic somehow, right? So that's my organic social media site that I use, noworkfriday.com. But yeah, I mean, just my website, philipfsmith.com, or really No Work Friday, and either one is probably the two best ways.
Yeah, man, that sounds great. We'll tag those links in the show notes here. And if people want to reach out and connect with you or go on those websites, learn more about you. I love the No Work Friday. That sounds like a really cool, kind of branding idea as well. But yeah, I can't thank you enough for making the time to be on the show today. Really appreciate all the insights. And yeah, we'll just look forward to following your journey. And we'll catch up with you soon, Phil.